look, if this is where you're supposed to be, then and you have done your soul searching and it's where you find joy and fulfillment, it's a calling, then do it. You got to follow that. But you got to know a lot of people feel that same way. And the only thing that's going to get you closer to where you want to be is doing the work. And it won't happen overnight, but keep doing it. And you do it because you believe in it and because you get so much more out of it than, that final destination dream of like having that blockbuster hit or getting that Academy Award. You got to like the journey. One of the things that I've really taken time to do, like the last couple of years, is, well, longer than that if you factor in COVID. But I'm like, why do I feel this way? And also, there's nothing good or bad about that feeling, but I feared it. So I purposely would take a book to a bar, have a drink, and sit there by myself and read a book, even though people are there on dates, even though there's like groups of people, there's sports, it's loud. And just because I knew this makes me uncomfortable, let me face it. Let me get exposed to it more. Let me get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I never wanted to solve it like it was a problem. Like, I need to be able to go and not be uncomfortable. I saw it more as, this is a human experience. Like, let me explore this more. Like, let me go and be uncomfortable and really meditate on what is making me uncomfortable. What else around the idea of being uncomfortable that is so human and relatable can I just learn just through, study?
That's the key to keep on living life, and you're keeping your spirit alive, Jason. I think when you keep doing new things, trying new things, just started swaying away from the normal, trying things out, right? Like, really do things different for once. And that's especially for writer, especially for a filmmaker. I mean, I imagine that's exactly what you need to always be developing material. Even for me with this podcast, with everything that I do, you have to get out there and you have to be trying things. Otherwise, it's going to be a little difficult to make material and gain experiences, seeing people. I've learned most of the things in my life from just learning how things work. Back to what you were saying, interactions with people. You have to kind of see that stuff, or people, it's not gonna translate well, right? It's like CGI. For me, I know CGI when I watch it, and it just doesn't translate for me yet. I recognize the body and the humans, and that it's for me, it's still that's still where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, you want to explore human stories, you have to study humanity, you have to study human behavior. And what better place to start than in yourself?
Where did this all sort of come, Jason? With you wanting to as if you always been this way? Is this recently? You're a father now. You have your family. By the way, congratulations. How old is your? He's a boy,
Yeah,
right?
my son Sage is about 15 months old, and he's just the love of my life. Yeah, my wife and I call each other somates, and which is not a word. It's soulmate, but we just pronounce it in Spanish. And so he's like our somatite now. He's like a little part of us.
So batita. That's great. That's a Now, how has that changed you, Jason, as a person, as an artist, as a filmmaker? How has becoming a father entering this chapter of your life? Just how does that affected you?
I thought becoming a father would change my lifestyle. That's sort of what I thought would change the most. I didn't really know that it would change me as a person. And I realized, a year in, earlier than that, but over a year in now, that at least for me, like, I didn't change, but which is what I thought was going to happen. I'm like, I'm going to change. I'm going to be different. Fatherhood is going to make me, I'm going to be a father. I'm not just going to be this anymore. And what I've realized is it's just sort of made me more. It's been additive. It hasn't been like, a substitute of any kind. And if anything, it's sort of helped cancel out a lot of stuff in my life that really didn't matter or wasn't important or maybe affected me that didn't need to. And yeah, having Sage has really centered me as a person more so than I was before. And
You were a pretty censored guy before that, so this is great, man. Because you're just going up higher. A lot of people, once the family elevates, they elevate, and it's just all elevating from
I don't
here.
feel like, I guess what I was trying to say a moment ago, but I didn't, was that I thought there were going to be sacrifices, and the selfish part of me not having a kid yet, when he was on the way, felt like, well, I'm going to have to give up these things, or I'm not going to be able to do this, and I'm going to have to care for this kid now, and they won't appreciate me till they're 10, and that 10 years is a long time. And um it just I never could have understood it till it happened. But yeah, you realize there's this person. And like, just think about like the feeling of being in love. It just feels good, right? Like when you're in love in a relationship or like a deep friendship, it just feels so pure and amazing, and you just ride a high. Well, a child will love you like that no matter what, right out of the gate. So it's like you've got this extra person in your life who's just in love with you, and it's incredible. There's like one other aspect which I'm starting to discover, which is that because everything is new to them, they've never experienced life, everything is a first for them, that you are experiencing childhood again through them. And how many people talk about like, man, I wish I could be a kid again. And the truth is, when you have a kid, you basically are a kid again. It's really bizarre. I didn't ask for that. I wasn't pursuing that. That's just sort of what happens.
And has that sort of, I feel like in many ways that's a revolutionary thing, because it's like for you it's like the circle of life, right? You become a father, but like you just said, you go back to being a kid again. Everybody wants to do that, but they're doing it in the wrong ways, right? It's not wearing basketball shorts and motorcycle t-shirts in your 40s. It's doing this stuff, but there's nothing wrong with that either. But very nice, Jason. That's awesome to hear, and that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure your son's gonna be. He's got a great dad, so he's in a good place.
I'm going to do the best I can. I think about that every day.
Well, advice to everyone out there: your children will change your life for the better. You heard it here. A successful filmmaker only saying it's enriched his life. You hear a lot of horror stories, especially in actor life, Hollywood life. They say not to do it, but you know,
I think
it's
the trick is you have to care and you have to be present, because, I had a dad who wasn't there, and know a lot of people who had that dad, and it might be a generational thing. All the dads that I know now who are newer dads, they're wonderful. They're present, they're engaged, and they really want to be a strong part of their kids' lives. And people are co-parenting now. It's not like outdated gender roles. My wife and I, we both work in entertainment. Our careers are really important to us. They're so wrapped up in who we are. Like, where we find value in our lives is through being able to get to work, do the work that we do. And so neither of us ever wanted to just be a stay-at-home parent. And yet, ironically, now we're all working from home. But and Sage is here. He's got childcare, but he's here, and we get to see him all day long, and every morning and night, and the weekends. And it's just, I feel like we get to see him so much. It's wonderful.
What's your advice, Jason, to making a relationship work, having a marriage work in the filmmaking business, right? A lot of people like to say that you don't want to have that. It's going to cause frustrations. For you, that's not the case. It's only made it better for you, and it has kept you focused. So, can you offer a little advice for that? I would love to hear that.
I think, if you are with someone who is also in this industry or any industry, but this is the industry I'm in, and that she's in, it's almost better, because nobody really gets what it's like to work in entertainment who isn't in entertainment. And having that person, and it goes both ways, where you can really commiserate, you can hold each other up when needed. You understand the time, the commitment that it takes, and the work and the hours, and that there are no guarantees. Financial stability is harder to get, in this industry. And So, you know, the, the advice that I would give isn't even related to entertainment, but certainly this is what has worked for us. And that is literally from day one, we vowed to each other that we would just be transparent. Whatever our feelings were, if it was being selfish, upset, irrational, um, those are the hard ones. Obviously, if you're happy, it's easy to be transparent, but however we were feeling or whatever thoughts we had, even if they were dark thoughts, especially if they were dark thoughts, that we would just be open and just communicate with each other, that there would be no judgment, that we would process it together. And there was never a moment where it was like, well, you're being needy, you need to stop, or you're being too much. We just sort of allowed ourselves to be everything that we needed for ourselves, and we're there in support. And there was so much, even today, like we still have to remind ourselves, like, just tell me, like, we made an agreement to be open with each other about everything. And it just, you even in just a friendship, it doesn't even have to be like your soulmate or your partner or husband or wife or anything. It just in a relationship, if you were just open and honest and transparent, not trying to mask anything, not trying to play any games, not trying to withhold, not trying to put on a front, then it's incredible how fast and how far you can leap in that relationship, and how much more meaningful that relationship will be.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's wonderful advice. Transparency, no manipulation. There's a lot of people who think they can mind trick, manipulate their way around life, and especially today, we see that it doesn't work. Doesn't work in life, it doesn't work in relationships, it doesn't work in business. I've had to leave companies who try to get me to sell people things in disingenuous ways, and I say this doesn't make sense to me. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I'm willing to try things that are new and innovative, but if it doesn't make sense from the get-go, naturally I can't do something that I don't do. So I've had to leave places so that I work in a place, in an environment where it aligns with who I am and how I do things. Because anything in life, if it doesn't work for you and you're doing that, I think it's gonna mess with you. You have to be honest with yourself and with the people around you, and you'll live a much more fruitful life.
Yeah, man, what you do is who you are. So you better make sure the stuff you're doing is you, that you feel connected with that. And life's too short.
You we certainly reap what we sow.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're a director, you're a writer, you wear a lot of hats, but that's also not uncommon in this business.
That's right. I mean, if you're creative today, you also are an entrepreneur.
Where did this entrepreneurial personality come from, Jason? Where did this develop from? Was this natural for you as a child?
I think a little bit. I mean, if I really look back at my lineage, I mean, I essentially come from a family of salespeople on my mom's side and con men on my dad's, and somewhere between the two, there's some artistry and craft.
Oh yeah, there's always a that dividing line, especially with that con man aspect. A lot of people get there because you're always trying to find creative ways to do things, and sometimes you get a little too creative. That's
You
awesome.
just want a shortcut.
That's right, but there are no shortcuts, as I've learned, as we've all learned. So that's awesome, Jason. Now, where was that at? Where were you born at? Where was this?
Well, I was born in Richmond, Kentucky. My parents met in college, but my dad is from San Diego and my mom is pretty much from Kentucky.
Very nice. And so you were the filmmaker in the family. You were the first guy to get into the movies, wanted to do this. Was this something they supported? When did you start to show signs of this?
Well, I came up through the writing aspect. I was a novelist at first, and so that pretty much carried me through college. And then it was at that time I got into filmmaking. I was always into film, but this wasn't something that even occurred to me until college.
Very nice. Very nice. So you're a writer, you're a creator, storyteller. You like to make things from the bottom up.
Yeah, I mean, I was always that kid whose favorite books growing up were the Choose Your Own Adventure. I like to have autonomy in the story, and I always felt that my imagination would take me a lot further than the books that I was reading at the time could. I just wanted to create, wanted to make new.
What's really interesting about that is I'm not sure. I'm trying to find a place to relate in this respect. I also did that as a child. I found myself writing a lot. I would write a comic book that I would read to the class at least once a week on Fridays. Like my teacher somehow, I don't remember if I told him or that somehow one of the comic books ended up on his desk, but he started to let me read it to the class. And I would write those stories because you have so many ideas. You're sort of confused about the world, whether you're not really running from issues because you don't even know what issues are. Maybe there's things outside in the universe occurring that you can't make sense of, but it's really interesting when the child starts to create things and make things. It's like that's where your individual perspective and view on the world starts to really seed into the universe.
Creating goes hand in hand with learning, and especially as a kid, you're still developing and you're just absorbing so much information in the world around you. And yet it's got to be something that's within us that compels us to make space to create in addition to soaking up all that information.
Very nice. Where did you go to college, Jason? Once you started to move your way up, you started to really get good at your craft. You started to realize, hey, I think I can actually do something with this. This isn't just going to be a hobby. I'm not going to get into maybe a sales job like your family. I think I should really go for this. Where did that point start?
Well, for practical reasons, I was pursuing a marketing degree because I just felt like writing isn't something you can do to make a living. I mean, you do it on the side, you do it as much as you can. You hope to one day be able to make money doing it, but you got to be practical. And I mean, writing was sort of the backup plan for me. I was just going to get a marketing degree, be in business, maybe start a business and to fund this hobby. And I just got to a point in college. I was at the University of Louisville, and I just realized all my electives, which I basically took all my electives first, and they were all writing workshops. So I was sort of burning out all my English and creative writing options early. And I just decided, why am I pursuing business? Let me just pursue the writing. And so I changed schools actually. I moved to the DC area, went to the University of Maryland, studied with this amazing author, Howard Norman. And there was no guarantees I was going to get into that program. It wasn't like everybody who signs up gets in. I think they let in like 16 people a semester or a year, and you had to like submit a portfolio, and it was straight out of a movie. I mean, I called and I asked when I was going to find out, and they said, "Oh, well, we're actually posting the names this afternoon." So I said, "Great." So I go over to the hall, the English building, and I go up to the right floor, and literally it's like a crowd of people, and they're waiting for the names to come out. And I guess I didn't understand like how much of an opportunity it was at the time. I'm like 20. And so, yeah, this person comes out of the office with the lists, and everybody's like huddled around, and some people are coming away crying, some people upset, some people like, excited. And I look, and it's this really short list of names, and sure enough, I'm on it.
Wow. That must have been one of the most validating moments of your life. We always, not that we seek validation, but that's huge. Getting that acceptance must have been huge. That's amazing. That's amazing, Jason. Now, you're someone, Jason, that has always spoken about mentorship, why it's important to have mentors. You've had mentors. Can you talk a little bit about that to our audience? A lot of people want mentors. Maybe they find mentorship in the people they watch on the internet, but you've had mentors and you've benefited a lot from them.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. Like, I obviously I think you should give back, being a mentor, people have helped you along the way, you should help others. But there's another aspect, which is, when you mentor somebody, you also sharpen your own skills. There's so much value in learning how to talk about your own craft, because it's one thing to practice it, it's another to explain what you do to someone else, sort of get like under the hood of the craft. And yeah, I always, I'll say this: when I first got to LA, when I was pursuing filmmaking, and for a long time after, I felt like I need to network. I need to make some contacts. I need to meet executives and buyers. And, it just felt like that is what you're supposed to do. That's what you're told to do. And I spent so much time doing that I neglected to look instead for champions. And so now I always say, like, don't look for contacts. Don't build your network. Like, recruit champions instead. Find the people that get you, that support you, and they could be mentors, could be colleagues or friends, people in your creative group. It could be people, I'll say this loosely, under you, who are helping to prop you up. That is going to get you much closer to where you want to be than anything else you can do.
Very awesome. Very awesome. You know, I in sales, what I hear all the time is your network is your net worth. And it's interesting that there's a lot of just throwing spaghetti on the wall and figuring out who you mesh with. But I've found that I always gravitate towards people that I can at least see some sort of semblance to and relation to. And we got to relate at some point. It can be cold and new. I'm all about that. But you're so right. It takes a village, and the more you can narrow down the people you really want to work with, you know, there's a saying that I like to live by very often and remind myself. I say, if you lay with dogs, you wake up with fleas, and that's a big thing. That's a big thing. There's a lot to that, I think, because in my experience, you know, you hang out with people who have bad habits, you pick up those bad habits, or if they're not aspirational, you don't really go places just like them. You know, so you end up complaining. You have to change your way of seeing things from being what do you call it, victim mindset, to like a response. I try to respond to things as opposed to, like, you know, judge them or, oh my god, woe is me, poor me. I'm always getting bad situations. I'm always like, what did I do wrong there? How can I do that better the next time? And in my experience, it's always been the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to find your community. And I think we all have this misconception about, like, we need to meet certain people that are sort of quote unquote gatekeepers, especially if you're talking about a career in filmmaking. And
Yeah.
we those people, they're always changing with turnover. You meet those people, they're not even real decision makers. And we just end up on this other side of a desk trying to impress someone, when all along we could be building our own community, finding people, not those dogs to lay with, but those, unless that's how you want to lay, but just finding people you have a common interest that you relate to. And almost like, if you could choose your family, who would they be? And but on your career level. And I mean, we're all, I think, like, you mentioned sales a lot, because it is sales, being out here, it is very much that, those practices. But it's just finding those people that they're going to be hustlers like you, they're going to be working on themselves and also working at getting ahead, and you really can grow together. And it's like, you're never too, it's not like there's an age limit on that either. Like, you could choose today, I'm going to find my community and start growing with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just met a guy the other day, 75 years old, and I've gained so much wisdom just from him in the last few days. It is insane. So you never know what you're gonna get. I allow everything to. I allow myself to interact with the universe as much as possible, because a lot of great things can happen. You know, every day on the street, random situations. There's a lot out there, and that brings me to my next question, Jason. As a writer, you gain a lot of your inspiration from real world experiences. Is a lot of it coming from past experiences? You've written some material that actually you've put some time into this. So it's not just scribbling, but it might be. I want to know about your process, as I'm sure our audience does.
Yeah, I think, now, it used to be, I would have like a really vivid dream, and think, oh, that's really cool, that should be a story. And I would sort of just write anything that came to me. And now I have merged, okay, this is a business, with, I have this outlet and this need to be creative. And so I'm much more strategic and specific in what I choose to develop. And if I write something now, because I've learned that it's not a story that comes to me that has to get out of me, so much as me just having the need to look inward and explore things like darkness, dark themes, what is human. And I those things that I really am drawn to, I can explore in any story. And so now I'm looking at, well, what are the ideas that stick with me after like a couple weeks? I'm still thinking about them. um and my ideas, they come from anywhere. I'm always thinking, I never stop being that kid reading the choose your own adventure books, writing my own chapters. So I go through life that way. And in terms of the process, though, once I have a story, the hard part, honestly, isn't the story and the plot, because that's really fun. It's, who are the characters that inhabit the story, and then now how are they going to change? Because if your characters aren't having any growth, and they have to be dynamic and complex to be able to be ready for growth, and for you to be able to write them authentically, then these plot points and this cool story, this cool setup doesn't really amount to much. So I find myself really exploring, once I could figure out the character, what their world is, what makes them tick, what their struggles are, what are their vices, and what are their dark secrets. And the more I get into that, the more the final product really comes to be. Then I write it.
That's huge. I've heard that a lot before, and it's always great to hear that. You're right. You can't. A lot of things we watch today, I always hear it. Those characters have no depth. I can't relate to those characters. I don't. That's a huge thing even today. So, if you can do that, you've got something there.
Yeah, I mean, some people will be like, I'm going to write this story, and I'm just going to imagine it's Channing Tatum from Magic Mike, and it's Angelina Jolie from Salt. It's like, okay, fine, and those are real people, the actors are real people, but you're already basing a fictitious character on another fictitious character. Might not be a lot of depth there. Might not be a lot to work with.
Yep. Oh my God. I can't. I would watch that too. I would too, but I don't know how many of these heist movies you see. There's a bank robber and this guy's gonna rob the money, and it's like, oh, that's nothing. Come on, don't do that to me. Yes, absolutely, Jason. Absolutely.
We get desensitized. We're so used to seeing the same thing and the same devices and characters handled the same way. Even the structure, I talk about this a lot, is like, I feel like now these like Blake Snyder Save the Cat, he has a beat sheet. It's like 13 beats. It's like, these are the beats you should have in every story in this order. Even just like Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. It's like, now I feel like executives and writers kind of use it as a paint by numbers. And so it's almost like they start with a template that's already written for them, and they just have to plug in the plot points. And guess what? When we're savvy viewers and we watch so much content, we start to feel like everything is predictable. Everything has the same journey and trajectory. And a lot of it is because, people are writing to these same beats. They're not really breaking outside of that and getting creative.
How do you think, Jason, after saying that, do you think filmmaking is going to have to change the template? You're so right. The hero's journey has been beaten down to the bone. We've repeated, and you watch a movie and you know exactly what's going to happen. The guy gets the girl, the guy almost dies, and then the guy saves the universe. How many times do we watch that? How long is that going to last? And is that even still sustainable today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always going to be a great story approach, but I feel like we have to get deeper, darker, more specific with our characters and their struggles and vices. And you know I think that I am one of those people that believes there are only a handful of different stories that actually get told, these sort of story types or archetypes. And what's going to make it different is the world that you're in, the characters. Definitely, I think that's really where it's at. And I'm not saying don't use these beats in your stories. I use these beats in my stories, but just don't look at it as it's like a paint by numbers and you're coloring in the lines. Use it as a guide for knowing like what a really satisfying journey can be. But the other thing I'll add, and it's just kind of in the middle of a thought, but the other thing I'll add is, too much, it just feels like an executive looking at a stopwatch saying, we need to move to the next scene. We need to move to the next beat. The films that really resonate with me, certainly, but just based on like, what is getting critical acclaim now. And even like, I know it depends on how you feel about the awards, whether you think that it's a sham or it's real, but they certainly can be directive. A lot of the stuff that is bubbling to the surface that people like are films that live in the moment in a world with characters. They're not rushing through the plot points. They're allowing us to really be an eye into a new world and to live vicariously through a character that might be familiar to us in our real lives, but doesn't feel like the leading hero in every movie we've ever watched before.
Right. It's almost like the more daring people are the ones doing it with a character that's completely non-related to how you look, act, or are, but you are in that world and you're in it. You're on that ride.
Yeah, we believe that their choices aren't like universal choices. It's like they are making the specific choices based on the life that they live and where they want to be and versus where they are, all that.
Dallas Buyers Club, that was a crazy movie. You're the whole time you're going, holy smokes, Jared Leto's character, all that.
Oh yeah. A lot of movies. I mean, even Joker. which was a big movie. That felt specific to a real human. And of course, it's all based on comics, and performance brought so much of that out, and writing and directing. But yeah, I think you could be a big movie and still achieve these goals. You don't have to be like the little tiny indie. Although if you are the little tiny indie, then great. Like there's room for all of it, I think.
A lot of filmmakers coming out today. A lot of people I'm meeting haven't even put anything out, and they've got some really interesting stories out here. So I'm excited to see it. I love this game, and I love all the new projects being made. So, Jason, very nice. Yep. Jason, you've experienced some longevity in your business. You've been in this business for a while now. What do you credit that to? What has kept you here for a long time? In Hollywood, you see a lot of people sort of come and go. Whether they get married, they move, they give up. You've been around for a while. You keep yourself mentally healthy. You have a family. For those of you that don't know, Jason's a family man. He's doing it all, you guys. So what keeps you on top of it all?
Well, I mean, I know I'm meant to do this, but that isn't enough on its own. I um, I knew that if I was going to be creative, I mean, it goes back to in my college days. I knew that if I was going to be creative, I also had to be business oriented. And especially today, I mean, you know, this is the age of content creators who are like one-stop shop, small business owners who eventually like scale up. And you just have, if you have to be willing to do the work, and it is work. It's not, there's some glamour to this, but 99.9% of what this is work. And you have to be smart. There's only so many hours in a day. As you mentioned, I'm a family man now. I spend time with my family. That's really important to me. And how do I balance that? And it's being smart, thinking like a business every day, trying to move the needle with my business. I don't even refer to it as career anymore. It's just my business. Now, I'm in a business that I love. I love the projects I'm doing. I get to be creative. I get to work with the people that I respect and that I love working with. And sometimes that's a longer, slower road to whatever you might imagine success is. For me, success was always to be able to dedicate my time solely to this craft, getting better, making stuff, and the business side. And sometimes business isn't fun, but it's just part of the job. I mean, you can't separate the two.
Gotta treat it like a business, and that's where you will succeed, you guys. That's where you will move the needle up. You've prioritized moving the needle up at least a little bit every day. Feed the business, feed the family, feed the business every day. There's no days off with these things.
Yeah, and if you grow every day, you move the needle every day. Just you might not notice a big change from day to day, but imagine 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you'll look back and look and just see how far you've gone.
Now, Jason, what are you doing to take care of yourself mentally? A lot of people in this filmmaking world, there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of contemplation, a lot of unfinished projects, a lot of unfulfilled dreams. How do you keep yourself mentally clear and healthy and going out here? Are you meditating a lot? Are you ignoring all the fluff? Is it just maintaining focus?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have been wanting to try meditation. I know so many people who do it, and I know it doesn't take much time and it's not challenging to do, but I just have yet to get around to it. But yeah, I try. My wife is incredible, Annette. She's super supportive. She's a producer. We are in the same industry and complementing roles. Although our she often has her own projects, I have my own projects. But in terms of like a foundation at home, we both understand the journeys that we're on, and we get to share in that. So having someone to share would be number one. Um, yeah, I try to like go for walks, go for runs, work out here and there. Um, Definitely take time to stop and celebrate um, the small stepping stones of success. Those are often overlooked. People focus too much on the end goal, and yeah, I just I love what I do, and I get to choose who I work with and who I spend my time with, and that comes from realizing life is too short. So you have to love the journey, or the destination won't mean anything, and you'll be miserable. So how do I stay balanced, and how do I stay in it? I focus on what I can control, my own actions, and the rest I can't control. Sure, you get no's, you meet people that make you feel like you're terrible, or that you just are like, everyone has stuff that they deal with, and I kind of like put it on that. If you have a bad meeting, or somebody really gives a bad response to your work, then you're always going to be growing. So I'm not saying that you should ever think, oh, my work is perfect, so anyone who says otherwise is wrong. But you know, find the people that connect with your work. That's those are the people who are going to watch your work. There's plenty of people who won't care at all about the work that you do, and that's fine, because you're not going to get everybody. So open up that dialogue with who your actual audience is. I mean, that's so crucial. I wish I would have spent more time doing that earlier on.
Absolutely. You hear it so often. It's the people who lie to you and give you all of this false, bravado and pump you up. Those are the people that really don't care. You hear it very often. A lot of successful people, celebrities, successful business folk, those people leave and they just do that for you because you're probably giving them stuff. But it's the people who would tell you your work stinks, if it stinks, or that you need to change something about yourself. It's those people who care. It's those people who want to see you succeed, because we're not perfect as people. And I've found that a lot of times when I would deflect a lot of those things and then let some time pass, I'd say, you know what? There's probably something to that. I should really take that in. And then the people who are like, oh my gosh, this is to the top. I'm like, I don't know, but there's a lot you have to be able to see that, especially in this business. So you're people need to take that, and I don't know if it's a life experience thing, but you just have to have those sensors on.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be completely vulnerable and tap into what's human and real in yourself as a storyteller and as a collaborator. But you got to have that thick skin for the naysayers and the no's and the rejections and the days that are just really hard, or you want to be lazy, and you can give yourself time off, but you are gonna struggle against a lot of different variables all the time. And yeah, stay open, but stay tough. It's like those two ideas are just so opposite that it seems like they're impossible. But there's plenty of people standing in a very long line willing to take all that on. So if it's really important to you, do the work, keep your head up, and get better.
Well, Jason, this is a nice little introduction for our audience. I know you're a busy guy. You run an empire. You are a father now. You have your business. You're doing a lot of things. So I want to go ahead and let you out at a good time. I would love to get you on again in the future and just talk to you some more. There's a lot of stuff that you're doing that I think is awesome. People follow this guy on Instagram. He's putting out videos that are talking a lot about this. I see that I think you've always had this curiosity, but you're talking about it, and this is the stuff that it comes from a vulnerable place, I see, and an honest place. And when you have those two things together in one place, that's a good place to be.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I just realized, there's too much sort of half truth, not full accurate reflection of what it's like being an artist in this industry and what the life is like. And it very quickly can be lonely. And I decided, I've got all these experiences and I've been doing this, and I'm just going to start sharing what my experience is. And I'm not going to pretend that it's all glamorous all the time. I'm not going to try and embellish. I'm just going to say, look, this is what I've learned. This is the real version of a life out here in this industry. A real person, not a billionaire like Steven Spielberg, pie in the sky, A-list type of legendary person. Like the rest of us who are working and have found a way to be really fulfilled and continue to grow, who are just doing it.
Yes. That's why, that's like I said, Jason, that's why I got you on. And I think this is going to, people can check out your work and see what you've done, and they will be able to see that you are a real person. This is a real person I'm speaking to, and he's got a lot of success, you guys. So, follow him, you guys. And Jason, it's been a great pleasure. Let's do this again sometimes. I would love to if you want to come back on. Jason, before we go, I want to ask you one last thing. what do you have to say for anybody wanting to get into this business, anybody who's in this business, and especially after the coronavirus, this whole thing that has happened? What's your advice to them to either reignite that flame, keep that flame going, or if they're about to create that flame, what do you have to say to them?
Say, look, if this is where you're supposed to be, then and you have done your soul searching and it's where you find joy and fulfillment, it's a calling, then do it. You got to follow that. But you got to know a lot of people feel that same way. And the only thing that's going to get you closer to where you want to be is doing the work. And it won't happen overnight, but keep doing it. And you do it because you believe in it and because you get so much more out of it than, that final destination dream of like having that blockbuster hit or getting that Academy Award. You got to like the journey.
Like the journey. Like the journey. That's I like that. I love that. All right, you guys. Jason Oliver Silva.